Good afternoon on this wonderful Wednesday, February 22nd. I'm Heiss alongside my co-host, Tabor Bayles.
Best time of the year. This is the prime time for soccer fans.
And thank you for tuning in to FC Recap. And we got some wonderful games to talk about. First leg matches have just ended in the Champions League, and then we're going to preview for the second leg in a couple of weeks. Okay, so to start it off, day one was very exciting.
It was a shocker.
Yeah, it was a shocker.
Off.
Benfica beating Dortmund 1-0, and then the big surprise of February 14th, Paris Saint-Germain beating Barcelona in Paris 4-0. What do you think about that game?
Well, this was probably the most shocking soccer result in the past 3 to 4 years that I can think of, barring except for the Germany blowout of Brazil in Brazil. But everybody picked Barcelona to at least go to the semifinal, and most people expect them to win the Champions League most years because they have that big three there with Neymar, Messi, and Suarez. And so for them to lose 4-0, 4-0 for some soccer fans, if you're a snob, would be that's just an absolute shocker. PSG is a perennial. They usually lose perennially in this round of 16 or quarterfinals, and they usually don't reach their expectations. But this year, the shocker is the tables have flipped, and PSG, without Zlatan, now might be contending for that semifinal.
Yeah, it was very interesting. I mean, Barcelona has been struggling recently, but no one expected PSG to blow them out like this. So possibly they might be eliminated after this second leg. And I'm looking. The interesting game is Benfica Dortmund. That second leg is going to be interesting because Dortmund is still in the game. They're only down 1 goal, going back to Germany. So there might be a little interesting matchup there. Marco Reus, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang might do some damage there. So I'm very interested with that matchup.
Yeah, scoring 0 away goals was not ideal for Dortmund, but they only lost by 1. So they're definitely still in this. And going back to one of the best home pitch advantages in all of the world, they're in the industrial part of Germany. The fans are nuts there. I think that Dortmund's got a great shot to pull this one out. They've got to win by at least 1, or if they give up a goal, they have to win by 2. And so I think that's very manageable for this team. They've got a lot of talent, like you mentioned, Marco Reus, a lot of speed on the outside with Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. Everybody knows him as the great FIFA player. But I think that I would give Dortmund the edge as we look forward, but we'll get into that later.
Yeah, and going into day 2, we have Real Madrid beating Napoli. That wasn't much of a surprise. I mean, Real is on top of La Liga. Napoli's a good contender, but it's just Real Madrid is one of the favorites to win the whole thing. But the big surprise of day 2, February 15th, was Bayern Munich destroying Arsenal 5-1. What do you think about that matchup?
Yeah, this was a really bad day for England, to say nonetheless. But yeah, Arsenal going down 5-1. Arsenal is one of the best teams in the Premier League, and for them to lose, when you put your top competition against the rest of the world's top competition, and they lose 5-1, England and Premier League fans who believe that that's the best league in the world, which a lot of people in the United States also believe, that's really bad news for them. And I think Arsenal's definitely, they're gone. They did get a bad draw pulling Bayern Munich, which is one of the top 2 teams in the world by most people's opinions. But this is a really bad news for the Premier League as they continue to struggle in the Champions League competition for the past 4 years.
Yeah, it was a bad day for Arsenal, but it is typical Arsenal season where they win group play and then they just slow decline throughout the season, and Bayern just caught them on a really, really bad day. So I'm not surprised Bayern won. I'm just surprised about how bad of a defeat it was. But Arsenal's all but done after going down 4 goals. So good luck, Arsenal, in the second leg, but season's almost over in the Champions League, and I'm looking for Bayern to go real deep. Now, on to yesterday's matches. February 21st, it was continuing the first leg matches. It was Bayer Leverkusen at Atletico Madrid, and Atletico ended up winning that game 4-2. Very interesting game. It took a while for Atletico to get going, and it was a couple of counterattack goals that really set them off. So what do you think about that matchup?
Yeah, for Atletico Madrid, they just took took care of business as usual. I mean, they've been a little bit under expectations, not being in the top 3 of the La Liga this year, but they continue to find themselves in the quarterfinals or semifinals, or even last year the finals of the Champions League. And so this team continues their dynasty reign in the Champions League. And so I think Atletico no doubt will advance after that first leg, especially with 4 goals on the road. Leverkusen, they put up a decent fight. They were up. They did have a very good game. They were up 2-1 at some point, correct?
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
no, that was a different game. That was Man City.
Man City.
Yeah.
It was the Man City game, which is we're talking about next. Man City ended up beating AS Monaco 5-3, but it was an interesting start because Monaco was leading that match 2-1 all up until. No, they were up 3-1 all up until the 71st minute. And then Man City just scored goal after goal after goal after goal, tying it up and then taking the lead and then extending the lead, which is very, very surprising to me because Monaco is on top of the French league and Man City is only in the top 4 of the Premier League. But just the late goals saved Man City in this match. And now Monaco has to come back in the second leg and make things interesting. But Man City, in my opinion, has the best chance out of all the Premier League teams in Champions League play right now to advance to the quarterfinals.
Yeah, we mentioned that the Premier League had a really bad week with Arsenal losing 5-1 last week, but Man City, and they were down, as you mentioned, in the last 20 minutes of this game. But they bounced back and they saved England with those last 3 goals in the last 20 minutes. So
yeah, they're going to have to represent the country.
Yeah, this is still but I would not write off Monaco yet. Man City is definitely the number 1 hope for the Premier League at this moment, but going to Monaco, they already got 3 goals under their belt. If they win by 2, which is that's a manageable deficit, I think Monaco could advance, but I would say I agree with you that Man City has the best chance to advance to the quarterfinals and make noise there for the Premier League.
Yeah, so it was an interesting day yesterday. But talking about today's matches, today ends the talks about the first leg matches, and it was another interesting day. Juventus ended up beating FC Porto 2-0. Now, the interesting part about that, not the outcome, but how the outcome came about, because FC Porto got a red card in the 27th minute. So for most of the game, they were playing with 10 men. And it took till the 72nd minute for Piaka to get the first goal for Juventus to put him up 1-0. And then Dani Alves, 2 minutes later, got the second goal of the match for Juventus. But I'm surprised it took that long.
Yeah, Juventus is another one of those top contenders that we continue to reference. I think a lot of people have them advancing to the semifinal or quarterfinal at least. And I think they definitely will be in that quarterfinal. They did win 2-0 on the road, but it was not an impressive win by any means. And so I think Juventus and FC Barcelona, both of them have some work to do. Obviously Barcelona has a lot of work to do on the field, but I think that both the teams, they were the representatives of the Champions League, and they were in the final a couple of years ago. Both those teams have a lot of work to do if they expect to get back to that stage.
Yeah, and the second game of the day, it was Sevilla and Leicester City. That was a good game. Sevilla ended up going 2-0, and then Jamie Vardy for Leicester scored a real late goal. So that might be another matchup that we look to in the second leg, where Leicester could possibly be the second Premier League team to come out of that match. But I don't know how that outcome's going to be, but it's in England, so Leicester may have an advantage. But before we go, who do you have as your favorite winning it all?
I've got to go with Bayern Munich at this point, taking out Arsenal, one of the top teams in their Premier League. I think that FC Barcelona, when they fall off that cliff, and Juventus not impressing me today, I've got to go with the Germans is my favorite at this moment.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with the Bavarians too as my favorite after that big win. Thank you for tuning in to FC Recap. I'm Kyle Heiss alongside me with Tabor Bayles, and we'll see you next time.